In her book entitled The How of Happiness, Sonja Lyubomirsky, professor of psychology at the University of California, defines happiness as the experience of joy, contentment, or positive well-being, combined with a sense that one's life is good, meaningful, and worthwhile. Hi, Lesley Hornsby here, back with another video. This time we're exploring the idea of happiness, what it looks and feels like, and why it's important to your mental well-being. Usual stuff. If you find you enjoy the video and you'd like to see more, just hit subscribe and you'll be notified when I next post. Now, to find out more about me and life coaching in general, you can just head over to my website at this address. So it seems to me that the pursuit of happiness is, as far as I can tell, a uniquely and universal human endeavour. Ask anyone what makes you happy, and I think there are few who'd say they didn't understand the question, even if they've never experienced it themselves. Whether you could come up with a clear answer as to what constitutes happiness, well, that's another question. The Oxford English Dictionary's definition maintains that happiness is the state of pleasurable contentment of mind, deep pleasure in or contentment with one's circumstances. Well, whatever form pleasurable contentment actually takes, of course, is going to be as diverse and varied as people themselves. The pursuit of happiness, or more specifically pleasure, is a very deep-rooted desire in all of us, even if we don't consciously acknowledge that that's what's driving our behaviour. If you really stop and think about it, how many of your thoughts and actions are connected to being happy? Unfortunately, this is really where the flaw in thinking can derail you. It's really tempting to regard happiness as a goal in itself, when in fact it's not so much a state of being, but rather a question of attitude and mindset, as well as circumstance. After all, your life is never just one thing, is it? It's made up of a range of component parts, each of which you've likely imbued with a very specific set of expectations. Understanding what constitutes happiness lies in the insights that we have about human motivation and behaviour. As far back as the ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus, there has been the theory that human behaviour is determined by two main drivers. Now, Freud named it the pleasure-pain principle. The premise is that we're constantly being pulled in various directions in life between the twin forces of pain and pleasure. That's commonly referred to in psychological circles as punishment and reward. Now, we instinctively seek pleasure and avoid pain. And when I say pain, I'm not just talking about the physical sensation, but the mental anguish. And that could be fear, hurt, anger, disappointment, embarrassment, frustration, and so on. And similarly, pleasure can be experienced as, say, satisfaction, fulfillment, maybe approval, achievement, or affirmation. Let's say you decide you want to lose some weight in the belief that you'll feel happier. At that moment, in your estimations, how you look doesn't match how you should. You experience the pain of feelings like self-loathing or dissatisfaction. You decide to lose some weight and you set yourself a goal. You believe achieving this goal will bring long-term pleasure and you'll look and feel better about yourself. However, the journey to weight loss isn't likely to be easy. It's possible you'll have to go through some short-term pain to get there. And the key to success? If your motivation towards the long-term pleasurable outcome outweighs, pardon the pun, the momentary pain of reaching your goal, you'll succeed. But if not, you won't. Our relationship with the world, in NLP parlance, is referred to as an individual's internal map. It's a unique representation of the world and contributes to how you feel and behave. Mapping our world in this way begins from birth and is based on everything you experience and are exposed to throughout life, and instructs the beliefs you form and the values that rest on them. Because everyone's life experience is unique, so too are their internal maps, which is why we don't all react to things in the same way. An impoverished and unrealistic map can restrict choices and result in a poor mindset. Now, in brief, beliefs are ideas that you hold as being true. They can be based on certainties like the law of physics, or on probabilities, in other words, things that you take on faith. As well as your belief system stemming from personal experience, it can also be determined by other factors. Well, that could be aligning yourself to cultural or societal norms, or in response to people who exert significant influence over you. Your values are driven by your beliefs, and both of these things determine what's important to you. They dictate the standards by which you conduct your life and make choices and relate to every aspect of your life. When thinking about whether you're happy, and if not, why not, taking stock of your life is a good place to begin. Firstly, identifying your values is a good way to get greater insight into what makes you tick. Understand yourself, what motivates and inspires you, and you're basically on your way to having a greater control over how you experience life and an awareness that allows you to weed out unhelpful thoughts and behaviour patterns. By mastering this, you're in a much better position to accurately assess the areas of your life that dissatisfy you, and more importantly, why. When there's a mismatch between ideal and the reality in some area of your life, it can really foster a sense of helplessness and negativity. And you may find yourself being dogged by a vague discontentment, a lack of fulfillment, or worst case, depression. So can we become happy at will? Well, let me put some questions to you that can help you gain clarity on where things in your life aren't as you imagine that they should be. Firstly, think about what brought you to that conclusion. In reviewing your answer, consider whether that is actually the true reason, or is there something else lurking? And I ask that because sometimes the big stuff, it seems so insurmountable that we deflect and focus instead on much lesser issues that aren't so painful to challenge. Now, how did he come to that conclusion? If you're struggling with that question, then think about areas of your life where you feel there is conflict. Strong clues are when you hear phrases in your head such as, it should be, or if only this one thing. And once you've got a handle on that, you're in a good position to begin to drill down and explore where that particular belief originates. Ask yourself things like, why do I need X in my life? Explore this question by challenging it with further questions. Things like, will getting it make things better? Where did this belief get started and what caused it specifically? What's my resulting behaviour? Is that behaviour helping or hindering me? If, by the way, you decide it's hindering you, then ask yourself why you're allowing it to continue and can you change it? When it comes to then addressing an internal map reality mismatch, first measure the gap. Is it a small niggle or a massive downer? Does it actually need fixing, or is it just a matter of attitude? If a fixer-upper, what steps are you going to take to close that gap? Start planning to achieve it. Do this by following a series of questions. Where am I now? Where do I want to be? What do I need to do to close the gap? How many steps will that take to get me there? Are they achievable? And what's my deadline for each step? Feeling wretched or being paralysed by unhappiness is a dark and lonely place to be. And I should know I've been there more than once, and I'm in no hurry to revisit it. When I was in the throes of a really quite severe depression, everything looked bleak, everything seemed hopeless. The compulsion to withdraw from the world was very strong. And for many years, my life has been a series of moments of getting back on the horse. I relied a lot on an innate ability to regroup and keep going. And I admit the last time this happened, with the death of my mum, I didn't bounce back straight away. I was exhausted, and as far as resilience was concerned, well, the well was dry. Now, Richard Bandler, co-founder of neuro-linguistic programming, posits that in times of stress, people react in one of two ways. A person can either be destroyed by adversity or grow stronger. Now, resilient people just don't give up. They don't allow themselves excuses, but find ways to break through whatever it takes. If you can do this, you can begin to build a psychological immunity to hardship. I admit I wallowed for a while, a lot longer than I have had before, and I believed for the first time in my life that I was beaten. But the fact is, I did come back from it. Not with therapy or endless cups of tea and sympathy, but my natural resilience, it finally kicked in. If you want the full story, by the way, it's all written down on my About page on my website. So if you want to, by all means, go fill your boots. Basically, what it comes down to is an unwavering determination to succeed. The sensation of happiness comes with the pleasure of taking the journey, reaching for goals and achieving them. You know, positive anticipation is strongly linked to happiness. In some cases, levels of happiness can be even higher during the anticipation of achieving a goal than the goal itself. And I should know, I've experienced it. I mean, one Christmas, my mum and I decided we were going to visit my brother in Australia. Now, she had mobility issues, so we couldn't really contemplate travelling economy for such a long journey. So we decided to take the hit financially and go business class. And I kid you not, the fun that we had watching YouTube videos about flying business class. Imagining ourselves casually draped over the onboard bar, drinking free champagne, rubbing shoulders with shadowy bond-like figures, whilst chomping down on tasty treats from the snazzy menu and luxuriating in seats that recline to full stretch into a bed. Now, I know we're a couple of prize yokels, it sounds like it, doesn't it? But truly, we derived more pleasure in planning and visualising that journey together than we did the reality. And apparently Bond has his own jet. Still, it was a great trip. You know, happiness is not as elusive as you might think. In fact, in many aspects of your life, you can decide whether to be happy or not. You just have to identify what action to take and to want it enough and then do something about it. I think it was Tony Robbins, the life and business strategist, who said it, that life just doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And you can create positives from any situation, and you have the ability to transcend what happens to you. A happy life is about constantly moving forward and growing. If you stand still for too long, it can mean that you start to stagnate. So I guess my advice to you would be to try and identify meaningful life goals. For me, it was about expanding my horizons and taking my life by the scruff of the neck and shouting at myself to dream bigger. So I decided I needed to learn about online marketing to promote my business. Now, it took some time, but eventually it resulted in the expansion of my coaching business. But it was the journey that proved so fulfilling. In some ways, attaining the goal was just an added bonus. And guess what? I'm pretty happy despite some considerable challenges that I do still face in my life. Go for goals that excite you and fill you with enthusiasm. Maybe it's being your own boss, or finding ways to spend more time with your family, or helping others, whatever it is. Choose something that gives you a sense of purpose, meaning, and control. To paraphrase Sonja Lyubomirsky, working towards a meaningful life goal is one of the most important strategies to finding lasting happiness. If you have a perspective on this topic and you'd like to share it with us, please just leave your comments below. And if you've enjoyed today's video, just hit subscribe to join me again next time for more on working with NLP and living your best life. In the meantime, bye for now, and thank you for listening.